Good morning. My name is Molly May, and I am this morning's worship associate. My pronouns are she, her. I am a warm person. I was trying to think of how do I describe myself, right? That doesn't use a visual description. So I'm a warm person. It's an honor for me to be here today. My father became an ancestor just a couple weeks ago. And I just saw a friend of mine and learned that her father did too. So as the worship associate today, I'm a little soft. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. And if this is your first time here, woohoo! A special welcome to you. And if you're online, the link to our visitor form is being dropped into the chat right about now. It's always a challenge to find your way around a new place, so I want to give you a few tips. We no longer print orders of service, except for the large print copies that you can get from our greeters. The big QR codes that you see on the walls, and they're mostly by doors, you can scan those with your phone or take a picture, and the link will give you all the resources for the service today. And I also believe, though I've never scanned a QR code, that they also tell you who participated in the service, like about the choir, or Suzanne, or Joe. Okay, so I am going to ask Cecilia, she's going to help me light the chalice. Thank you all for being here today, gathered in this precious community where we hold a covenant of nurturing our relationships and acting from our shared values. We light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with words from UU minister Elizabeth Strong. Our Universalist heritage bids us light our chalice in the name of faith, in the light of hope, in actions of love. We gather in community to celebrate a heritage of faith, hope, and love. Let us begin this Unitarian Universalist heritage into our world and our lives today. Oh, let us bring this Unitarian Universalist heritage into our world and our lives today. And now let's say the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
Good morning. I am DeVenney. This is Heritage Month and October's Worship Associate Sunday. I volunteered to take it on with the help of Worship Associate Molly May and the support of our wonderful staff. Rev Jen has the day off, and as you saw, Ryan, our Director of Faith Formation, is at a conference. For those of you needing a physical description, I'm a 72-year-old woman with salt and pepper hair, wearing glasses, a dark gray blouse, and gray pants. So, today, we're going to consider the idea of heritage. Not just what we are, but who we are. What there is in common for all of us. Some things ancient, but also some things malleable and very currently present. I want us to consider the shared ancestry and cultures of a human existence, but also our own personal, individual heritage. Do we come from the love of thousands, which is the title of this theme today? And if so, now what? So come, let us worship together.
So I'm going to read from the book of Joys and Sorrows, where as a congregation we send peace to a congregant's sister who's lived with ovarian cancer for 10 years, and her other sister who was newly diagnosed. Peace and support for a family affected by alcoholism, to a daughter and a granddaughter. Healing to Bob, our longtime volunteer fireman who is struggling after heart surgery. and still thinking of dear Terry, who sang our childhood and teenhood to us. Orion Stewart Emmett Curie arrived early in the morning of September 30th and is a beautiful 21.25, which matters sometimes, inches and 8 pounds, 14 and a half ounces. We are so happy for their family. And we are all holding Kitty Carlisle in our hearts. Tomorrow morning, she will undergo heart surgery. We light the candle of life for Esther Erford, who died on September 29th. She joined our church in 2003 and was 95 years old. We also light this candle for the loss of Reverend Betty Pingle, who served UUCE as an interim minister from 1995 to 1997. She died on September 6th at the age of 97. And we also acknowledge our collective sorrow about the war breaking out in the Middle East and the continuing conflicts in our world. The UU Voices for Justice in the Middle East group is meeting today, and it's meeting after service at 11:30. It's in one of the classrooms. Jean is going to return the Book of Joys and Sorrows to its spot now, and if at any time during the service you are invited to write in it. We acknowledge the power of sharing the message of our human experience, our grief, our fears, our celebration. Our minister, Rev Jen, and our lay pastoral associates will see these messages, and if you want someone to contact you, please let us know. So now, I invite you to center yourself in your seat. Find a relaxed, supported position, and take in a breath. Let the tension drain from your body. Stretch and release as you need to. Know that you have nowhere to be but here, right now. Nothing to do but to be present and relaxed. Any areas of tension can now melt away, and as you relax, I invite you to listen to these words adapted from the essay, Your Body is an Ancestor, by Sophie Strand. Your existence is an altar to your ancestors. Every one of your cells holds an ancient love story. Breathe in slowly, knowing that your breath loops you into the biome of the ecosystem. Every 7 to 10 years, your cells will have turned over, re-articulated by your inhales and exhales, your appetites and proclivity for certain flavors. If you live in a valley, chances are that the ancient glacial moraine, the fossils crushed underfoot, the spores from grandmotherly honey fungi have all entered into and rebuilt the very molecular makeup of your bones, your eyes, your lungs. You are threaded through with fossils. You are an ode to elemental legacies you would not be able to trace with birth certificates and blood lineages. You are the ongoingness of the dead. Every decision, every idea, every poem you breathe and live is a resurrection of elements that date back to the birth of the universe itself. And due to the miracle of metabolic recycling, it is even possible that your body somehow holds the cells of your great-great-grandmother, or my great-great-grandmother, or that you are built from carbon that once intimately orchestrated the flight of a hummingbird or a pterodactyl. Your body is an ecosystem of ancestors, an outcome born not of a single human thread, but a web of relations that ripples outwards into the intimate ocean of deep time.
The love of thousands. Now what? That phrase, the love of thousands, comes from Pulitzer Prize finalist, poet, and writer in residence of the Chickasaw Nation, Linda Hogan. In her book, Dwellings, A Spiritual History of the Living World, Hogan writes, "Suddenly all my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the love of thousands." So how did we each, as unique individuals, come to exist in this human form, in this place, in this time? Was it the love of thousands? Well, young Earth creationists would say that the world is 6,000 years old, and our common ancestors were named Adam and Eve. Or if you trust science and can pronounce these words I learned when researching this talk, we came from free-living prokaryotes that melted into each other billions of years ago to form the mitochondria and organelles of the cells that build our bodies today. Both these creation stories, and many more, have the same theme. One way or another, our origin stories say we all share a common beginning. But for today, I'm going with the science. John Terrell, who's a professor of anthropology at the University of Illinois in Chicago, says, and I paraphrase, "Your biological ancestry is what makes you human, rather than, say, an oyster or a camel. Biologically speaking, your DNA is 99.9% just like everyone else who is human. Only the remaining 0.1% helps make you who you are as a singular individual." 0.1%. So this got me. I started looking at the differing types of DNA testing through services like Ancestry.com and 21andMe. From this testing, we can learn a best guess kind of information about the general geographic location of where our direct ancestors lived thousands of years ago. And we can expect to potentially find relatives that go back as far as maybe 6 to 10 generations, given an adequate pool of others who have spit in that tube, well, a different one, and a little bit of luck. Then I found out about 2 other kinds of DNA testing. These are a bit more sophisticated. mtDNA goes back as far as 200,000 years to the woman that they call mitochondrial Eve, from whom all humans are believed to have inherited their mitochondrial DNA. And another type of DNA testing, Y-DNA, shows that all men living today inherited their Y chromosome from a single direct line male ancestor. Oof. So I'm a retired social science instructor in applied psychology and sociology, so this blows my mind. Add to this DNA stuff the work on genome sequencing, research on the genes, and a few other things that are contained within our DNA has found that only 1.5 to 7% of the modern human genome is uniquely human. most of the housekeeping genes inside our DNA, necessary for basic cellular function, are shared among all living things. So, surprise, we humans share about 60% common genes with bananas. All right. This overlap exists because all life evolved from a common ancestor, a single-cell organism that lived 3 or 4 billion years ago, known as the last universal common ancestor, or LUCA. Our common genes, with that of a banana, or a fruit fly, or a chimpanzee, all at different percentages, have been conserved through billions of years. So not only is our DNA 99.9% the same as every other human, but the genome that our DNA comes from shows that we are up to 98.5% related to every other living thing, every other plant and animal on this planet. Talk about an interconnected web. And there it is, right there, the love of thousands. Each time genetic material was saved, each time human DNA was passed on, from LUCA until now, those were acts of love. You are a result of billions of years of universal love that has created you, whatever the circumstances of your family history, your conception, your past, or your recent ancestry. You are the love of thousands. There are many of us who know the stories and love and value our ancestors. We've worked hard to discover them. We saw many pictures of these folks up on the screen as we took our seats today. If you visited your ancestral homelands and felt a connection, a sense of place, what a joy to have done that. If you've met distant family members, new people in your life who have a direct bloodline with you, what a wonderful discovery. But for some of us, these things can be fraught and uncomfortable and contradictory, and in some cases, not even possible. We may come from generational trauma, secretive birth circumstances, closed adoption. For some of us, our recent ancestry may feel out of reach or unknowable, lost when not so distant relatives were enslaved or assimilated. We may possibly even dismiss the idea. Oh, I'm Heinz 57, right? Oh, I think I'm Greek, I don't know. And actually, I don't like my ancestors much. So I'm going to come back to this, but for now, I want to move on to this idea of heritage. While our ancestry, our genetic makeup, may tell us a little bit about what we are. Oh, I'm 20% German and 40% Irish and 40% Italian. Our heritage, on the other hand, tells us a great deal about who we are. Heritage is made up of those aspects of life that have been selected by humans within a society, within a culture, and they're both tangible and intangible. It's what we have chosen to keep, to identify with, both consciously and unconsciously. For instance, in Guatemala, there are individuals who at one time valued the beauty of brightly colored threads and found natural dyes, and these aspects of their choosing became woven, pun intended, into the heritage of the Guatemalan people, who continue to create beautiful, vibrant textiles. Customs, folklore, ritual, these are heritage. the way people dress, the food they ate, these became heritage and were shaped by choices made across time. Heritage can come from the culture in which you grew up, but on a more personal level, the messages you got as a child, the lessons you learned, your family rituals, rules, expectations, your personal heritage. So ancestry tells you what you are, but not who you are. And here's where I said I'd come back. You can choose the ancestors to stand with you. You can claim Luca and mitochondrial Eve. And if you're male, you can claim that bearer of the first Y chromosome. You can claim them as your ancestors. They are yours. And the second thing I want to point out is no matter what your background, heritage is also yours. You may have a rich and abundant ethnic and cultural heritage that even aligns seamlessly with your ancestry, but you may not. Heritage can come from many places in your life: your biological family, your chosen family, elders, heroes, community leaders, church teaching. Ancestry may tell us a bit about who we are, but heritage, about what we are, but heritage is who we are. It's a human creation, rich and varied. A living thing, just like our UU faith is a living tradition. You get to choose what you honor from your past. You can see what has been harmful to you or of no use to you, recognize it, and set it down. It doesn't disappear, but you don't have to carry it forward. So there's a website called Keep Things. Writers can submit photos and stories about the things they hang on to because it connects them to someone dear to them. The website states, a keep thing is a love story in disguise. So, that's my Annie Betts's casting reel. She won contests on the San Lorenzo River in Santa Cruz, California, long before women routinely entered these things. I have such fun memories of fishing with her in the ocean off the pier. This reel is a precious keep thing, even if I never use it for fear of breaking it or losing it. It connects me. It's part of the story of my heritage. Okay, that's my stepdad's horsehair bolo tie. Even when dressing up, he was fully in his rancher persona. Hand-tailored gray Western suits with a yoke and a big Stetson cowboy hat. Because of him, I rode in rodeos. I had big dogs and a lot of barn cats. I took care of chickens and learned how to shovel a lot of animal poo. This tie is a precious keep thing, which I'm wearing today. One of these keep things is directly connected to my ancestry. The other is not, but they both are of my personal heritage. They came from people who shaped me, who contributed in ways I can only begin to understand once I became an adult. So what have I carried from them as part of my personal heritage? I like to fish. I love being outdoors. I love and respect animals. I'm not afraid to work hard or to get my hands dirty. And my guilty pleasure, I like country western music. These are parts of me not locked into DNA, but malleable and carried through a lifetime, part of a personal heritage. Ultimately, I believe we can all be grateful to our ancestors. And if you have the imaginal space for her, send that gratitude all the way back to mitochondrial Eve. Understand the tiny chance of your unique existence and know that it did come from the love of thousands. And the now what? Carry forward the best parts of your heritage, both cultural and personal. And if you don't know it, I invite you to explore it or create it, to pass it on in values and traditions of your own. You have some building blocks right here in the values and traditions of the UU Church. So no matter your connection to your ancestry or the feelings you have about your background, embrace all those parts that serve the world, those parts that serve you, and carry forward that heritage that you want for yourself, for your biological or chosen family, and for your community. May it be so. Blessed be. Okay, I want to recognize someone today, a very important person in service to our church. In case you don't know her, this is Adeline Wagner. Now, the Wagner family members, grandparents John and Jane, parents Christina and David, and Silas and Grayson, and Brooke, her siblings, they've all contributed to the health and well-being of UUCE. Addie's role started before she was born. Christina would balance the baskets on her pregnant belly as she came up bringing the donations to the front. And then she would balance the baskets on her baby bundle that she was holding as she came up bringing the baskets to the front. When Addie could hold things herself and started to walk, she wanted to bring the donations on her own. And she's been doing so ever since she could toddle up that aisle. She carries these baskets forward at nearly every church service. And when she carries them forward, she also carries forward a heritage of service that she has learned from her family. So I just wanted us all to recognize Addie today. Okay. Ready? Okay. Thank you. Let us say our closing words as Molly May extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And as you go, please take a few minutes to greet your neighbors, especially those you don't know yet. Please remember our welcoming room and the conversation tables as additional ways to get to know each other. Thank you.